Welcome back, everybody. This is Sandra McEwen, and I am here to bring you a lovely little tutorial. We're going to make some tiny Champleve earrings. This is going to be, I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. And so we're just going to make these really charming little circle earrings, kind of like two colors. We're going to use unleaded, and we're going to actually fuse these little bases to create our Champleve and cloisonne earrings, and it's going to be super fun. All right, so let's get started. We're going to keep things very simple today, and we're not going to do any sawing. We're going to cut out our circles using a disc cutter. And what I have here is the Swanstrom disc cutter system that I got from Rio. And this is a fairly expensive piece of equipment, but if you do a lot of circles, it's kind of worth the investment. But never fear, if for some reason you do not have access to one of these disc cutters, I'm going to make some extra, and I will have them for sale on my Etsy site, so you can just buy them from me and then go from there. Anyway, so I'm going to be using 22 gauge fine silver sheet. I usually use 20 gauge for my Champleve, but because these are so small, we can get away with doing the 22 gauge. And it's such a simple design, we don't need that extra depth. And so this piece is 3 inches by 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to actually set this thing up on the floor because it makes such a clangy noise that it's just easier to do it on the floor. So anyway, let's go ahead and cut these discs out now. All right, we're going to start by doing the interior of our circle because we've got our drawing right here, and so we're going to start by punching out the inside part of the circle. And so I have that size right here, and here it goes into this one right here. So I've got the cutter here, and I have my piece of silver here, and then I have a little scrap piece. It doesn't have to be fine silver, it just it has to be the same gauge. And I'm going to go ahead and put this little guy right in there. I'm trying to make it so we use just, and I'm going to tighten this up. There we go. And if for some reason this thing ends up right where you need to be punching, you can press this button right here, and then you just move that out of the way. Oh, and I forgot to put the other little piece can go on this side to kind of counterbalance it. With these real thin pieces, it doesn't make as much of a difference. But if you don't have even, if it gets a little lopsided, it could get stuck. So we are ready to punch out. We've got our little guide. You can put a little bit of wax right around the edge of that. And we're just gonna stick it in, and I've got a nice heavy mallet, and we're gonna go for it. You ready? Lift it up, and you can save this for another little enamel thing. And let's just see where we are. Lovely. So the next thing that we're going to do is we need to cut out the exterior part. We've done the interior circle, and for that you've already spent the money for the Swanstrom cutter. You might as well go ahead and splurge and get the center. It's like these little pieces of plastic that let you cut out discs. And so we know that the larger size, the exterior, is going to be this one. And so this little plastic thing will, let me show you how it works. We slide this in just like that, and because this has a point on it, when we slide this in, it centers this, and that gives us a perfect sphere. So when we lift this up and we put this cutter in and then give it, there we go, we have a perfect little guy. Oh, that's so sweet. Let's make another one because we need to. We're making a pair of earrings. So we'll set that one aside right there. And I was pretty lucky. I was eyeballing it like this. But let's go ahead and remember, we're going to do the inside first, which was this one. And I'm going to do the other side here. There we go. That should be good. Not have to waste too much. There we go. And we stick that in there. That was the inside. We'll save this little piece for something else. And then we're going to do the outside again. Hopefully we're going to use our center. Give it a tighten. That's perfect. Get our little guy in there. There we go. We have two perfect tops. Now the last thing that we need to do is make two bottoms, because remember we're going to fuse these to the bottom. So let's go ahead and hopefully I have enough silver if I've done this correctly. I'm just going to make two regular size for the bases. There we go. So when we do it, this will sit right on top and it'll be perfect. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make the second one, and then we will get fusing. Oh, and you can see I didn't leave enough room. I was bad. I should have given myself a little bit. I should have measured these all out to not waste so much silver. So I bet if I measured these out and did it more carefully, I could get 4 in here. But since I didn't, I'm going to have to break open a little bit more silver and make my little base out of that. So maybe you'll need a touch more. I'll measure it out and see exactly how much silver you're going to need. But we're just going to go ahead. There we go. Alrighty, so that's perfect. We've got 2 little bottoms and 2 little tops. Lovely. All right, I just have some regular sandpaper. It doesn't matter what it is. This just happens to be what I have around. It's a 400 grit, and I'm just gonna use a little bit of water. And I'm only really concerned about the 2 areas that are gonna have to be fused together. I don't care about the backs or the tops. So I'm just gonna gently give it a little sanding. And I'm gonna do the same for the area that's going to get fused. There we go. So we're going to do that to both sets. A little bit of water. You could use your Fordham tool for this, but it's such a small thing that I think a little piece of sandpaper should be just fine. There we go. All right, so we've sanded these, and the next thing we're going to do is, because they might be a little dirty, they might have our fingerprints, so I'm just going to use a little bit of this isopropyl alcohol that you get anywhere, and I'm just going to go ahead and gently, and after I've wiped them off, I'm going to try to be careful and not touch them with my fingers. Same goes for these little guys. I know it's a little bit more difficult here, but that will just, any kind of stuff from your fingers will get cleaned off. All right, there we go. Alrighty, these are all nice and clean and they are ready to be fused. And the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to use a little bit of this fusing liquid. And what it is it's a copper solution. And copper has a lower melting temperature than silver. And so if we paint this solution on and just where the pieces are touching, it will make the fusing just a little bit easier. And you can certainly do it without the fusing liquid. And you have 2 options. You can make your own, and I have a separate video that you can go check out about how to make this fusing liquid, or you can buy a product called Blue Fuse, and I will put a link to where you can buy that online in the notes of the video. So anyway, and you don't want to use too much of it. I don't want to, you know, I like to just go nice and easy, so I'm just going to ever so carefully paint a little bit on this little guy. There we go. So just about that much. And then we're going to ever so carefully see if we can flip that over. Let's put him perfectly right like that. Beautiful. And we're going to go ahead and do that with the other one. And there we go. Just a little bit. If you get it everywhere, it's going to tend to pool when you melt it. So just carefully. There we go. And we're going to let those dry. If we try to heat this up with that, if there's any liquid in there, the liquid's going to bubble up and the little pieces of the top pieces might just fly right off. So go ahead and put that under a little heat lamp, give it like 10 minutes and let it dry. So we shall meet back at the torch when these are dry. All right, these have been drying for a couple minutes, so I'm going to assume that they're pretty much ready to go. I have them sitting on top of a tripod because we're going to heat them from below, and I'm using an acetylene tank with a size number 1 torch. It's kind of a big bushy flame is what I'm looking for, and I have a tiny little pick right here. Let's see, there it is, in case I need to push things down. And this is gonna go, these are so tiny that they're gonna go really fast. The best, what you really should do is make like 20 of them and do 20 in a row, and by the 20th you'll really have a good sense of, you'll have melted a couple, it'll be fine, but you'll have a good sense of how this is going to happen. It's a little bit thinner metal because it's the 22 gauge, so let's just get started and see what happens here. But anyway, before I do it, actually let me tell you what's going to happen. We're going to do a big bushy flame, and it's probably going to take about 30 seconds tops for each one of these things. We're going to heat it up real evenly, and you'll see any little bit of the fusing solution that you can see will turn black, and then it's going to burn away. Then the piece is going to turn beet red, and then it's going to gloss over, and it's right in that glossing over stage where things are just about to turn into a big puddle that you kind of swirl your torch around and just gently pull the heat away, because you could melt it very easily. And you don't have to do it on one fell swoop. You can do a little bit, back off the heat. All right, I've talked enough. Let's just do it. Let's commit to it. All right, so you can see I've got kind of a medium-sized flame since these are pretty small. And remember, we're going from below. I'm going to start with this one right here. There we go. And you can see those little flecks of black. That's just a little bit of the fusing liquid, and it's going to go away, but I'm just gently moving my torch around. All right, and see how it's beet red? Look how fast. And I'm really, see how it just starts to do a little bit? Beautiful. Done. So how fast that was. And let's go ahead and do the other one. That's why I say do 20 of them. Don't just try to do 2. And it, all right, so with this one, all right, see how it's beet red? Now we're gonna really pay attention. There we go, gently. See how it's just glossed over, and see how I pulled away. And just in case it's not perfectly down, I can take my little, oops, I flip it over, that's lovely. All right, let's move him out of the way. All right, see how I have the heat off, so it's fine. We're not melting these things. I try not to fuss with them. Oh my God. All right, let's come back. Really, we're gonna heat this little guy up and get that little corner. You know, when I'm doing this by myself, I never have any trouble. It's just all beautiful. It's only when I'm trying to show other people. There we go. See how a little bit of glossiness? Done, done, done. There we go. Beautiful. And I'm not fussed at all. There's a little bit of texture here and here. We're gonna be adding our own texture, so this is just beautiful. Unless there's, you know, to be honest, unless it's melted so much that there's a hole in it, you can generally kind of clean it up and go from there. So anyway, they are beautifully fused. We're gonna let those cool. All right, these have cooled, and you can see they are perfectly fused. They're a little nubbly on the back, but that's perfectly normal. And so we're going to go ahead, and this is the backs. I'm going to just use a little sanding bit, and you could just use regular sandpaper. And I'm just going to clean up the backs a little bit using my Fordham tool. go. So the back looks nice. Yeah, and depending on how, these are very small, so you may never get a perfect back. So you might have more cleanup to do, but this is a totally acceptable amount. Seriously, if there's not a hole in it, you can sand almost anything away. So let's go ahead and do the other back. And also, if the backs are really bad, you can just go ahead and do an opaque counter enamel, and then no one will ever know. So these are the backs. These fronts are nice and shiny. I've got a little bit of, this is like a little bit of copper blobs right here that I'm actually just going to go ahead and take off as well. See if I can carefully. And this is the brown, so it's a 60 micron, which is a little rough, but since we're going to go ahead and put some more texture on this anyway, I'm not going to stress out too much about the fact that we're adding a little bit of texture. There we go. See how we've done a little bit of that, and this one's looking good, so I'm not going to do anything with that. If you were really wanting to take this, you could sand this with some finer thing, but I'm not going to do that. I'm keeping it simple today. All right, so we're sanded. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of texture to these. So when you look through the glass, you see some fun texture. So that's going to be the next thing. I am going to use this little pointy scribe to make a texture on this thing. And you could use any sharp tool. Seriously, a sharpened nail will work just as nice as this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do kind of just a ray pattern all the way around, and the easiest way to do that is to use a little, I'm going to start with using a straight edge, and I'm doing this while this is still flat because it's just easier. So I'm just eyeballing this, and I like to go kind of see where the center is, and you can be as. So I have made these two, and I just kind of go halvesies until I get all the way around. And this is just going to catch the light and give it a nice little extra. Let's see if we're going to go all the way around. And at some point, I'm probably going to scrap the straight edge and just fill in. But this is kind of a good way to get nice straight lines with my texture, kind of like wheels, spokes on a wheel. And so you can see I got a little bit of texture there, which is nice. And because of who I am, I'm just going to have it by hand all the way around. There we go. I like putting a little bit of texture on these things because this is such soft metal. And again, if you have those engraving skills, you could definitely engrave away with that. And see, I'm not even worried that there's a little bit of gumpiness there because this texture is really going to kind of mask that. So we're just going to go all the way around. Go. Excellent. And so you can see that nice little bit of texture that I got. And I'm going to go ahead and do it with the other one. And we'll do the next thing, which is going to be just a gentle dome.